What's up, everybody? Couch Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video. And in this video, we gotta talk about the future for Valorant. What is Valorant gonna look like in 2025? How far is Riot gonna take Valorant? Is the game growing? Is it having problems? What is the Valorant future? There's a lot we got to talk about, but the GameLeap website is the best place to quickly climb to Immortal and beyond with our in-depth tips and tricks, VOD reviews, advanced guides, and so much more. So do yourself a favor and go check it out right now down below. Now, Valorant is quickly approaching its 2-year anniversary. The Riot tactical shooter actually came out June 2020, but the closed beta actually started April 7th, and the first upload on this channel was April 3rd, which is probably either today when you're watching this or sometime nearby. That is the 2nd-year anniversary of this channel, and we've been doing this for quite some time, and we've been playing Valorant for quite some time. But something that is interesting is a reflection in how has Valorant kind of grown from the beginning till now? What is Valorant doing currently as far as success in the industry? And where is Valorant going to go from here? How does Valorant look for the 5-year mark? And the 5-year mark is important, that 2025, because Riot has guaranteed 5 years of consistent updates, and we're about to be 2 years down. Now, that doesn't mean that they will stop. That's just how much they committed to at the start, to get people more excited and more willing to invest a lot of time into the game with confidence that it's going to last a substantial amount of time. And with the legacy of League of Legends backing up Riot Games, a lot of people jumped on board, and so far, so good. Now, that being said, before we touch back on that, let's talk about these 2 years. What has happened in Valorant? How has Valorant succeeded in the industry? And has Valorant been a success? And for the most part, Valorant has been a fairly successful project. Not only just the game itself, which is having tons of numbers and viewership on places like Twitch and YouTube, but importantly, the Valorant esport is alive and well, and there's a lot of investment from big orgs, and there are a lot of tournaments and supports for bigger tournaments from Riot Games so far. And honestly, considering we're not even at that 2-year mark quite yet, Valorant is very developed as far as their esports are concerned, and it doesn't feel forced like something like the Overwatch League. And typically, to have a strong, thriving esports scene, it takes quite a while to foster. So I'm pretty impressed with how far it's developed so quickly. Now, I think that several things are to really thank for that. One is the fact that Riot has just introduced servers as many places as possible to have that sort of competitive integrity, that low ping. I think that is incredibly important. And then, of course, the anti-cheat being more or less successful. I mean, more successful than many other anti-cheats in most competitive shooters. So those two factors have definitely bolstered the competitive mentality of the game and the competitive scene. Now, that being said, it's not all great. There have been a lot of problems with Valorant's release around COVID, specifically all the problems with LAN events, and the LAN Valorant scene has been very, very infrequent, if not non-existent, until relatively recently. Now, I do foresee as things progress, we might see a lot more tournaments that are just going to be more in person. And hopefully this could eventually ramp up into bigger productions, bigger things hosted by Riot, and potentially even something like a World Cup in Valorant would be incredibly interesting to watch. There's a lot of potential when you talk about a game that has so many active communities and active players in regions all around the world because of how many servers there are and how much support there is for international play. This allows for some really cool, diverse competition going down the line, and I hope to see a lot more of that in the future going forward from the 2nd year, which is now, to the end of the 5th year. Now, I can fairly confidently say that we've reached the point of, I wouldn't say equilibrium, but very slight growth. We're not exponentially growing anymore. For a while in Valorant, it felt like there were more and more people just flooding and flooding into Valorant, but because the majority of people have either tried Valorant or already actively play it, the market share has been more or less captured, especially with the expansion to all these new regions. Now, with Riot Games trying to develop not only a mobile version, which I don't even know if it will be similar at all, but are also developing a console version, that will be a situation where the overall people that are invested in Valorant increases. Now, this will not really affect esports at all. It won't even affect PC Valorant at all. And, you know, PC Valorant is going to be the end goal for a lot of this. I think Riot is just trying to grow the brand of the game, get more people excited about the game, potentially grow the esport, more eyes on the esport, and then of course they could do other things with the IP down the line, like, you know, a show, for instance, like they did with Arcane, or a music group like they did with KDA. Now, I think that one of the problems with Valorant currently, and one of the ways in which Valorant lacks and falls behind some other games right now, is the lack of any sort of casual type of play and very little depth as far as the game is concerned. We have some alternate modes like Spike Rush and occasionally Snowball Fight and Deathmatch and things like that, but more or less, Valorant is a ranked simulator. Like, you have ranked and then you have something that mocks ranked in just the regular unrated play. So the game does feel like it doesn't have a crazy amount of depth. Not that it needs a ton of depth, and of course, over the course of the next 3 to maybe even more years down the line, they can keep adding new things. But the mode selection hasn't really changed all that much since the launch of the game all those months ago. Now, that being said, that ties us directly into the next section, which is the Valorant future, or the future of Valorant. And one of the things that they are going to be adding is a tournament system. Should be coming out sooner rather than later. However, it's one addition that I think a lot of people are looking forward to, being able to play in a fixed tournament based on rank that will allow you to play for certain amounts of prizes, probably cosmetics and things like that. I do think that in order to make this fair, you need something like SMS confirmation so that people don't smurf nearly as much, but that's a problem that I'm not entirely sure will be completely solved with that. Now, I think the most interesting thing about the future of Valorant is the future of the additional agents and bounce of the game. For one, there are more and more agents being added, and they're being added at a pretty consistent rate. I think that eventually there'll be a situation where agent picks and bans will be something that will be introduced in Valorant Ranked. They've talked about not being opposed to the idea, but needing a more developed roster or a lot more agents to actually justify it. And I think that at some point in the next 5-year period, they will decide to pull the trigger, and that will be the case. Not entirely sure exactly when that will be. It will depend on how many agents come out, and perhaps it might even be after the 5-year period. But I actually do think that Valorant will ultimately adopt this feature. Now, the next thing that they have talked about before, and they said that they are very open to do, is introducing new weapons, which is something after 2 years, we haven't seen any new weapons at all. And it seems like they are comfortable with the way that weapons are balanced right now, which is probably why they don't really want to mess with anything. I wouldn't want to add any other weapons that could fundamentally break up pro play, break up the entire eco of the game, and be another variable that they have to balance. And while I don't think that having new weapons is necessary, I do think that it could be interesting, and it could be a way to spice up certain aspects of the game as long as they do it in very specific ways and not adopt things like the fully auto sniper that they've referenced to in previous articles. Definitely not something that anyone wants. Now, if I could personally come out with a feature that I think would be incredibly cool, it would be something that actually paid out players that were in, like, Radiant, for instance, in every region. I think that if you combine things like SMS confirmation with Valorant's fairly great anti-cheat, you could actually incorporate something like paying out the players in Radiant at the end of every act based on a percentage of the revenue that is created from the skin sales. And all of a sudden, I mean, just grinders are created night and day. People that are trying to chase the path to pro that are like fucking 17 could all of a sudden prove themselves in ranked, make enough money to justify continuing to grind, and just furthering that esports dream. I don't know all of the interesting variables around that, but this is just my one thing that if I think was added to Valorant, it'd be really cool, but I want to hear yours. How do you want Valorant to look in 2025? We talked about some of the features that would be great for Valorant, some of the things that they haven't done perfectly, and some of the things that they have done very well, and what Valorant will probably look like in 2025. But if you could choose something that would be in Valorant over the next 3 years, what would it be? Let me know down below. And the GameLeap website is the best place to absolutely pop off and dominate with in-depth tips, tricks, guides, and so much more. Do yourself a favor and go check it out right now down below.